It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a jerk. What it does make you is intentional. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. So start small, practice saying no in low stakes situations, and celebrate each time you honor your boundaries. This is Bold Intentional Life, the podcast for moms who are ready to stop sleepwalking through life. Hi, I'm your host, Jessie Larson, and I know how easy it is to get caught up in the daily grind, running on autopilot, feeling overwhelmed, and wondering if this is all there is. But here, we're about taking back control, realigning with what matters most, and making every moment count. You deserve more than just going through the motions. It's time to step into a life of purpose, balance, and fulfillment, one small, impactful change at a time. Each week, we'll dive into real talk, practical tips, and empowering conversations to help you shift from just getting by to fully showing up for yourself, your family, and your dreams. No more waiting. Your bold, intentional life starts now. Welcome back to the Bold Intentional Life podcast. I'm your host, Jessie, and today we are diving into a topic that I know hits home for so many of us, the idea of saying no. Let's be real. Saying no can feel so uncomfortable. If you are a people pleaser, recovering, someone who loves to help, or you just hate the idea of letting others down, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But here's the thing with saying no. Every time we say yes to something that doesn't align with our values or our priorities, we are saying no. We're saying no to something that does, and that is a big deal. So today, we're going to talk about why saying no is so important, how to let go of the guilt that sometimes accompanies when we say no, and my very favorite part, practical ways to actually do it without feeling like a huge jerk. I'm going to share some scripts that you can use in everyday situations, and we'll talk about how to reframe no as a positive. Plus, I will give a little bit of a teaser about how we go really, really deep into this in one-on-one coaching. So if that topic or idea resonates with you, stay tuned for that. And a quick reminder before we get super into this, if you haven't already listened to the core values episode 2 episodes back, or grabbed the free core values guide from my website, the link is in the show notes below, or you can go to jessielarson.com and grab it right there. Be sure to download that because that is an incredibly powerful tool that helps you really identify what matters most to you, what your core values are, and it will really tie into everything we're discussing today. So make sure you listen to that episode and grab that guide because it'll be very, very helpful to you. All right, so let's jump in. Why saying no is essential for intentional living, which, hi, Bold Intentional Life podcast is where we're at right now. It's what we want to do. We want to show up on purpose. We want to live intentionally. So saying no isn't just about setting boundaries. Hi, that's a buzzword from a couple years ago, right? Or avoiding overcommitment. It really is about living intentionally. When we say no, we're choosing to honor our time, our energy, and our values. Here's a quick analogy. We all know I love an analogy. Think about your time and energy as a cup, right? Can't pour into an empty cup. We think about this. Every time you say yes, you pour a little bit out. And if you keep saying yes to the things that don't fill you back up, you're left empty. When your cup is empty, we all know you're not showing up as your best self for the things and the people that truly matter. So if you can reframe for a minute that saying no doesn't make you a jerk, saying no is actually a sign of awareness. It's a sign of self-respect. It's a sign of honesty. It's a sign of self-preservation. It's how we create space for the things that light us up and align with our core values. So I know what you might be thinking. Easier said than done. I feel so guilty when I say no. I feel like that person's going to hate me. I feel like I'm letting somebody down. I feel insert XYZ. Trust me, I've been there. And that's when we can start to dig a little bit. Why does saying no make me feel so uncomfortable? For many of us, it's because we haven't defined our core values, so we don't exactly know why we're saying no. We don't feel like we have anything to back it up, and we feel like we need to have something to back it up. Spoiler, you don't. You can say no without anything. No is a complete sentence. But for many of us, it's rooted in something deeper. It might be a fear of disappointing others. It might be a fear of not meeting society expectations. It might be a fear of judgment. It might be a fear of missing out or feeling left out. It could be a number of things. And that's something to dive into about why does saying no feel uncomfortable if it does feel uncomfortable for you. I know for me, sometimes we're taught to be helpful, to be accommodating, to be selfless and put others first, to avoid conflict. But here's a mindset shift that changed everything for me. When you say no, you're not rejecting the person, right? It keeps going. When you say no, you're not rejecting the person, you're honoring your priorities. And you're modeling healthy boundaries for those around you, especially your kids and your family. But you're modeling healthy boundaries to that person you're saying no to. You're modeling healthy boundaries. It's so like when someone else gets to see you putting your priorities first, being honest with yourself, saying no when you need to, and modeling those healthy boundaries, that is a ripple effect that goes out into the world where more and more of us feel like we've got the room, not necessarily the permission, but we've got the room to be able to explore if we too could say no. It doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a jerk. What it does make you is intentional. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. So start small, practice saying no in low stakes situations, and celebrate each time you honor your boundaries. So let's shift really quick into why there is such a high cost when we say yes to the wrong things. So this part really hits home for me because when we say yes to the things that don't align with our values, with our priorities, the cost of that is so much more than just the time that we're giving up. We're giving up our energy, our focus, sometimes our peace of mind. Sometimes we say yes to something, but our mind is really over here, and then we're kind of juggling between the two things. Visualize it like you've got a full plate or you're juggling balls. When you are saying yes to too many things, you've got too many things up in the air. You're trying to juggle everything, and you've given everything uh, an equal value of importance almost. When we understand what our values are, when we understand where our priorities lie and what we want to put our time and our energy and our focus into, then we get to say, yeah, I've got room for that extra ball to juggle. Or no, I don't. I can't physically take one more on because I know where all my core values are, what my priorities are, and I'm being incredibly intentional. There's also a high cost of our mental and emotional fatigue. We risk getting closer and closer to burnout when we can't say no to things, and we get closer and closer to resentment. Now, that resentment might be resentment of ourselves for taking on too many things, for burning ourselves out, for we may not even recognize that it's not being able to say no, but that we can't handle all the things. Oh my gosh, I'm just so bad at time management. I can't get all the things done. Why am I so stretched so thin? And we can have this resentment and this judgment of ourselves. We can have resentment to the people that we said yes to, thinking, why did they even ask me? They know I'm too busy. That's not on them. That's on us. That's on us to be intentional and us to have boundaries. and be able to say no. This is a lot where one-on-one coaching comes into play because it's kind of like when your kids are in dare. And this is funny. I had an experience with my kid earlier this week about making decisions beforehand, knowing the things that are a yes or a no. We talked about how in the dare program that they go through in school that you decide beforehand. If I'm ever offered drugs, I say no. If I'm ever offered alcohol, I say no. If I'm ever whatever, I say no. It's that same thing. So within one-on-one coaching, we get really clear on your unique values. I don't tell you what those should be. We uncover and discover those. We identify what's really worth your time. And we not only create strategies for you to design your life around your core values and around your priorities, but we create strategies to help you be able to say no to the things that don't fit. And it's not always a no forever. It's a not right now or a not yet. But we help you create those strategies so that it feels intentional, it feels authentic, and honestly, it feels empowering. So just a quick little plug there if that's something where you're like, I want to handhold this. I want to I want to be more intentional. I want to figure out what my core values are. I want to be able to say yes to the things that really, really matter. And I want to say no. And I want to say no feeling confident and feeling not like a jerk. We can dive into that. There's a link below in the show notes. You also can reply to any email that I have and say, hey, Jess, let's talk coaching. All right, let's get back in. How do we say no? Easier said than done, right? So I love having, just like in the DARE program with our kids that we teach them beforehand, we say no to drugs, we say no to alcohol, right? It's nice to have some scripts to go to. So I've got 5 really easy go-to scripts for saying no. Number 1 is the polite no. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm not able to commit right now. It's polite, you're grateful, and you don't have to over explain why you can't. Now, some people might dig and some people might not. Just say, I'm simply not able to commit to that right now. Thank you so much for thinking of me, right? Number 2 is the value aligned no. And this is where you're knowing your values. This doesn't align with my priorities at the moment, but I appreciate the opportunity. Number 3, the delayed no. This one is huge. This one can feel like a baby step into no because it's not quite a no. It's, you know what? That sounds really awesome. I need to check my calendar. I need to think about it and let me get back to you. There is power in the pause. I teach this to clients. I teach this to my kids. I teach this to myself on a daily basis. There is so much power in the pause. So even if you can't say no, practice the pause. Right? I can't give you an answer right this second. Can I get back to you? It's not a no, but it's giving you space to be able to pause and think about if you really want to say yes. Number 4, the redirect. I'm unable to help, but, and then you can say, have you thought about? You could suggest another person. It's not my favorite route to go, but if you know that someone else is maybe available or might be a good alternative to you, go ahead and do that. I'm unable to help in this way, but I could do XYZ, right? I'm unable to go on the field trip, but I definitely could do XYZ. I don't know. Insert something, right? You can come up with an alternate, a redirect. And number 5, kind of like a parenting and family specific situation. Our family's schedule is full right now, so we'll need to pass on this. That is also one that it really helps to know what your values are, what your priorities are, and the things that you've got going on right now, right? Sometimes I'll say something like, I promised I wouldn't put anything else on the schedule for this month or for this week. I am tapped out. If I say yes to one more thing, I'm done, right? Just kind of that family specific, we've got a full schedule, we need to pass. On my website for the show notes for this episode, I have a whole list of ways to say no, a whole list. So if you need help saying no and you need some scripts to go to put in your back pocket, head over to jessielarson.com, click on the podcast link, and it's right there. Also, the direct link to that episode is right below in the show notes, so you can just grab that right there. All right, so I've talked a lot throughout this entire episode about the importance of why knowing your core values and knowing your priorities is one of the big keys to be able to say no with confidence. And I just really want to pound that idea home that number one, if it doesn't feel like a heck yes, it's probably a no. And also remember that every time you say no to something that doesn't fully align, you're saying yes to something that does. Maybe it's more time with your family. Maybe it's more energy. Maybe it's simply more peace. Now let's talk about reframing no as a positive. I hope I've done a pretty good job in this episode already at sharing how no is actually a really positive thing, how it actually means that you're really in tune with yourself, that you're really aligned, that you know what's important. So instead of seeing it as a rejection, view it as a choice. You're choosing what matters most. Saying no to a social event might mean saying yes to rest. Saying no to volunteering might mean saying yes to quality time with your kids. Celebrate your boundaries as wins and know that every time you get more clear on your no's, it's closer to the life that you want and the life that you want to be building. If we say yes to everything, our life suddenly isn't ours. It's suddenly not by design anymore, and it's no longer intentional. That's when we fall into reaction and responding. And I know that that's when I feel chaotic. That's when I feel like I'm just along for the ride, and it's exhausting and it's draining. So, this is my call to you to flip the way you view saying no. I love going back to that reframe of it's not a rejection of the person, it's me honoring my priorities. And that is huge. Saying no allows you to honor those values, to protect your energy, and to focus on what truly matters. And the best part is with practice, you can do this without guilt. You can do this without feeling like a big, huge jerk. So this week, I want to issue an invitation to you to practice saying no. Just start small. You can grab one of the scripts we use here on the podcast. You can go to jessielarson.com/podcast and go ahead and get more scripts to help you say no. And just notice how it feels to celebrate knowing what your values are, knowing what your priorities are, and living on purpose and intentional. Now, if you're not sure what your core values are and you're not sure where your priorities lie, don't forget to go back and listen to the core values episode 2 episodes back if you haven't already, and go to the show notes below and grab the core values guide. It is such a helpful tool to help you. And before we end this episode, I just want to give a little teaser, a little preview for next week. We are talking about how to overcome overwhelm with my signature 5-step framework. It is an absolute game changer. Every single time I teach this, I usually teach it in like a workshop or when I'm guesting in like a group or a mastermind or something like that. I definitely teach it in one-on-one coaching. This is a game changer. I'm bringing it to the podcast. I'm so excited. So definitely come back next week for overcoming overwhelm. And until then, say no to something and yes to something that matters. I'll see you next week.